Hey everyone, we are back ready to rock and roll. Make sure your cameras are on. All right, we got Zelina. Cool. I see Ed. Who else do I see? Okay, there you go. Denise. I see your message, Denise. Make sure your cameras are on, please, everybody. I see Daniela. Francesca, got it. Joelle. All right, cool. And I see you. Lola, make sure your camera is on. All right. So, Denise, you're saying that you tried to access Quizlet, but it says private. All right, let me see. I don't see your request here or here. So one of the things, unfortunately, to access Quizlet and have access to private stuff, because this Quizlet that I created is just for us, for the students. So what you need to do is create an account with Quizlet. Just keep in mind here. All right. Keep in mind when you create an account with Quizlet, yeah, because I'm logged in, so switch here real quick so I show you. So we click when you create an account with Quizlet, it says right here create on top. They ask you to either continue with Google or continue with Facebook or just email, right? Whatever. One of the things you need to remember with Quizlet, it's very specific with that, is if you started with Google, it's going to ask you to always log in with Google. If you start with Facebook, always log in with Facebook. But you have to create, as he says, sign up for free. One of the things it does, I'm not going to sign up now, but one of the things that they have as well is, where's pricing? It will pop up, premium will pop up for you to practice premium and pay whatever fees. There's an option there. Okay, I'm going to create one just to show you. Real quick, put in my passwords, creating one basic. All right, and you're not a teacher, you're not a parent, it's totally fine. And you're going to create sign up. All right, here you go. This is what it will show on your phone right away, right? And if you guys look at it, there's no like immediate way, you'll not pay attention. There's no immediate way to get away from, all right, I gotta sign up for the free trial. Okay? You guys look all the way up. It says try plus or continue with free Quizlet. Create, continue, click on continue with free Quizlet. You need to create a free account because I already pay for this service for you guys, so you don't have to pay again. All right, so if you really want the premium, it gives you a few other options, I guess. Progress, personalized study paths, diagrams, smart grading, whatever. If that's what you want, go ahead. Apparently it's $4 a month. Up to you. If you don't want it, because probably you don't need it, and quite honestly, I don't think you need it. You're just going to use it as flashcards, that's all. Then I would just click on continue to free Quizlet. It's something that unfortunately I don't have a service I didn't create a service or establish a service where I can offer you these flashcards directly from our website. Don't have it. So that's why we use Quizlet. And of course, they try to sell whatever products they have. Okay, but definitely try to do the free option, and that's it. Okay. Once you do that, every time, whether you log in, so whether you log in through through your phone or if you're logged in through your website, you need to always, whether you use Quizlet from your phone or from a website on the computer, you must always log in. So you have to make sure you are logged in order to access, because it is private, so only authenticated users with Quizlet have access to these options. Okay. All right. Joel's asking, what's the point to use that? So the good thing about Quizlet, actually, let me show you. I think I showed yesterday, but you were still trying to join. That's one of the issues, I guess. But when you go through Quizlet, let's say yesterday we talked about interest and estates. And one of the things we mentioned yesterday was undivided interest and undivisible. Remember? Indivisible, undivided interest. So if you click on it, it's like a flashcard. Instead of you writing flashcards, which help memorize things, you have this right here. So these are flashcards to help you, one, with vocabulary, and two, with memorizing things. Okay? So estate in land. What is estate in land? You click on it. Interest holders enjoys the right of possession, for instance. What is an encumbrance? Private interest holder with no right to possess, right? So an encumbrance is an outside, we said this yesterday, like a mortgage company. Mortgage company, a bank, does not own the property, so they don't have the right to possess the property, but they have a claim or an interest against the property, right? Do you guys remember this? Right? So the flashcards, and by the way, only use the flashcards. Don't use any of these other options here. But the flashcards, you know what? You can use Match. Match is good. Flashcards is good. The learning and everything else you don't need to use. Because I created this literally just as a flashcard. But it helps. It helps you, again, immediately identify certain things, right? And that's what you need. Another thing that I added here was strictly terms. Terms and acronyms. So real estate terms. Bundle of rights. We talked about it yesterday as well. You click on it, and this is the legal rights that you own or hold in a property, right? To control the property and so on. What is real property? We went over this yesterday. So generally immovable, and it goes with real estate. Personal property, movable, goes with a person. So again, it's a great resource if you use it to try to memorize certain things. Is it going to help you understand the questions? Not always. Not always. It's not the comprehension of the questions, but it helps you associate things right away. Doing the exams or the quizzes at the end of each chapter, that will help you. That will help you towards understanding how the questions are asked. Okay, so this is just for quick, as a quick reminder for stuff. Okay. Riley, if we're already signed up under another account for Quizlet, can I still have access to the school quizzes? No, you can use the same account as long as you're an authenticated user. It's not available to the general public and only to the people that I allow. So if you're an authenticated user, you can then go to, what do you call it? You can then go to your to the student portal. There's the link there, which I shared yesterday as well. The link is there. Then you just click and start. That's it. It automatically brings you into Quizlet. Any other questions? Questions. All right, cool. So, with that being said, is there anybody that's still not in the WhatsApp group? WhatsApp group. You're not in the WhatsApp group. Okay. So make sure you join the WhatsApp group. I'm going to share right now because I do announcements there. People share questions and thoughts. All right. If you're on your phone, that's it. That's what you click. If not, then just it's easy. Go to our website, newdirection.school. In the student portal, it's right there under resources. Let me show again. So if you're on your phone, you can just click on it right now. But under resources, it says right here, it's right at the beginning once you sign up, when you log in, I'm sorry. It says join WhatsApp group. You click on it, and it takes you straight to our WhatsApp group. Again, the advantage of the WhatsApp group or the Facebook group, mainly the WhatsApp group, the advantage is people get to ask questions and share ideas, and that's what's behind the WhatsApp and the Facebook groups. Okay, and pretty soon, under the new website, this is a new website, but I'm upgrading the whole thing because we're going nationwide, so I'm upgrading the whole thing. Is going to be amazing. So for January, not for now, unfortunately for you guys, but for January is going to be set up, and all the courses are going to be there available. All the Q&A is going to be there, like a whole help inventory there, so you can ask a question, and most likely I already answered. So boom, you can just search and automatically pops up an explanation of years of Q&As. All right, so that's something I'm working on. Unfortunately, evolving as we go. Some of you will not take advantage of that. Some of you maybe still want to be part of it and take advantage of it for the future, because some questions apply to real life stuff as an agent, right? All right, cool. So moving forward. All right, we got Shanice. Shanice, so here we go. I got my voter again, just so you know before you make a comment. And we're going to talk about ownership. Today we're only dealing with the 2 chapters. This first one, there's a few things here that might be a little complicated. Just giving you a heads up. And I do request, as usual, if you have questions, put a question mark and say, Bruno, stop. That's what the question mark is. If you want the mic, if you want to speak, just put a question mark and write mic right in front of it. And I will give you the mic for you to ask the questions, okay? If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you ask questions as well. You're very welcome to participate in the YouTube live chat, and I will answer those questions. It helps our students and hopefully helps you pass, as somebody just did this weekend. YouTube follower was able to pass the state exam. Well, at least she says it was thanks to our videos, to our lives, and hopefully that was the reason. All right. Now, ownership. There's sole ownership. That means obviously there's one person or one entity, right? And there's co-ownership where there's 2 or more. So co-ownership, or there's 2 or more. Okay. So we're going to start with these 2. And I need you to pay attention because it might get a little complicated. So we're going to start with tenancy in severalty. Now, usually when we see the words several is a lot, right? Several is a lot of people or a lot of things, correct? But the fact that there's ty at the end severalty, it's cut from everybody else. That's what this means. Severalty is cut from everybody else. So cut from everyone else. So a tenancy in severalty means it's a single party. Tenancy in severalty means there's a single party. That means one owner or one entity. Now, why do I say or one entity? Because guys, if I'm the owner, but I put it under an LLC, the LLC or the corporation owns the property. Now, what if I add 10 people to the LLC? Well, the LLC is still the one entity that owns the property. What we own, and we'll talk better about this later, what we own is shares in the LLC. All right? So in the corporation. So again, if there's a single party that owns the fee or life estate, the ownership is a tenancy in severalty. And it could be a sole ownership, ownership in severalty, or estate in severalty. They'll all be the same. Okay? The estate of a deceased tenant. Remember, yesterday we talked about freehold and leasehold, right? So there's freehold tenants, which own the property and occupy the property, freehold tenants. And there's leasehold tenants, which usually we commonly call them tenants, period. Right? If it's an ownership, the deceased tenant, right, will pass automatically to the heirs. So whatever I owned while I was alive is now passing to my heirs when I'm dead. Okay? This is in tenancy in severalty. In severalty. It goes to my heirs. Okay? The next one is co-ownership. Now in co-ownership, there's more than one person that's involved directly in the ownership of the property. We will be called either tenants in common or joint tenants. So when we talk about tenants in common, these are TICs or JTs. So from here on, I'm going to talk about TICs and JTs. Okay? The next one that we're going to talk about also is tenancy by the entireties. Tenancy by the entirety is between husband and wife. Okay? Tenancy by the entirety, husband and wife. JT, TICs. These are the three that I'm going to talk about more in detail over the next, let me correct this. Telling you, lefties are not good for this stuff. And wife. Better? All right. So again, tenants in common, TICs. JTs are joint tenants. Husband and wife is the tenancy by the entirety. All right. And then we'll talk about community and tenancy and partnership. So we're going to start with TICs, tenants in common. Now, tenants in common is the most common form of co-ownership when the owners are not married. Owners are not married. The defining characteristics are that there's two or more owners. There's identical rights. Interests are individually owned. Electable ownership shares. So it's not a 50-50. It could be 40-60, right? No survivorship. I'll explain that later. And no unity of time. I'll explain that later as well. So let me draw something here real quick. Okay. We're going to assume that this circle represents, first of all, 100% ownership. That's what this circle represents right now. 100% ownership. Okay. If we only have A over here, what type of tenancy do we have so far? What type of ownership do we have from the ones we already know? If there's only one owner, what type of tenancy or what type of ownership do we have? Let me know in the chat real quick. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, you can also participate. And Lula just answered severalty. Janice as well, severalty. Very good. So if there's one owner or one entity, it's severalty. Okay? And here's the thing. Once this person dies, the shares go to the heirs. We talked about that already. The shares go to the heirs, right? So if I die, who gets my assets? The heirs. Can they sell it? Yes, it's called an estate sale. Can they sell the assets? Sure. Can they keep it? Sure. They can do whatever they want according to the will, or if there's no will, then it's whatever they decide. Okay? Now, let's erase this. And we now have two or more entities, right? Not married. So when we have two or more entities that are not married, we're going to put here A, B, and C. And we're going to make a few cuts here. Okay? When we have two or more entities that are not married to each other, what is this called? Let me know in the chat. What do we have so far? What is this called? Tick. Perfect. You guys are on point. So this is called a tick or tenants in common. When there's two or more that are not married to each other, this is the most common form of ownership, tenants in common. Now, one of the things I want to show you guys, and Lula, I saw your answer. We're going to get to that. We didn't talk about JT yet. We're stopped at tenants in common. But one of the things that differentiates tick from JT, so pay attention, one of the things that differentiates tick from JT is exactly what I have here. Notice guys, make sure you have your cameras on. If this is the first time you're doing this, make sure your camera is on and so it counts towards your hours. All right, so here we go. Notice that I divided the shares. So B, me of course, has the bigger shares. A has the second biggest shares, and then C, some shares, right? So this means that everybody individually owns their own amount of shares and doesn't necessarily need to be equal. Right? It could be equal, but doesn't necessarily need to be equal. We choose who owns what, right? So if it's two or more people, not married, it's a tick. We have our own individual shares. Now, because we have our own individual shares, when C dies, what happens to C's shares? Just like in a tenancy in severalty, it's treated as if you're the owner of your own shares. So shares go to heirs, okay? So when C dies, okay, shares go to heirs. So let's assume that it was me, Daniela, and Ed, okay? Let's say me, Daniela, and Ed. Sorry, Ed, I'm going to kill you for a second. Who gets the shares, right? Usually, immediately will be your spouse, right? So Kelly gets the shares, and then the kids will get their portion as well if you did not prepare a will. If you prepare the will, then you say, hey, everything to Kelly or part of it to Kelly and the other part will go to the kids. If you don't want to leave anything to your kids, you can say the rest of it goes to not-for-profit association somewhere. So you determine who gets your shares. You understand? So when in a TIC, when somebody dies, the shares go to the heirs. Why is this so important? So I'm going to address something before we go to the next one, which is the JT, which is a few years ago, I had a loan modification company, and one of the things that we were doing, obviously, besides helping people do loan modifications, we also did short sales, and we're trying to prevent people from losing their homes, right? Or their credit, or living a life, right? Things were tough back then. So that's one of the things that we were doing. And we had this particular deal that we're trying to help the husband and wife keep the home through a modification. Unfortunately, during that process, the wife died of cancer. You know, it's sad, it happened, but the surviving spouse said, well, I can still afford a house, like after the whole the pain and all that stuff. I mean, not that the pain went away, but after the immediate pain, we said, okay, we need to focus on this, or I'm going to lose my house too, right? So we were able to get a modification. We were able to get a great deal for them, actually, right? For the surviving spouse. The problem is title. And in the title, it was not husband and wife. It was sister and sister. So the husband and the other husband, so the brother-in-law, were not even part of the deed. The sisters were. They were all four on the loan, but only two of them were in the deed itself. So we didn't pay attention because it was not our job. We always took the position that deed and title is something that attorneys handle, right? And it should be. It's not us, right? So everything goes. We bring this to the attorney. The attorney prepares whatever documents and submits to the bank. Submitted to the bank, and a few months later, we get a reply saying modification is canceled because of title issues. We're like, what title issue? Right? He received the property. He is the estate administrator. Probate happens, meaning he's the one that's immediately entitled to receive whatever assets that the wife had. Right? So what's the issue? And we're researching, we're going through all the paperwork. What else could we be? We pulled title on our own as well. We're like, no, we have to figure out. So let's see what's on the title. So now we're going above and beyond because it doesn't make sense. This guy already lost the wife. Now he's going to lose the house. It didn't make sense. And we're researching until one day I pick up the deed. And I look at the deed, and the deed said that they owned the property, and I'm gonna go back in a little bit, but they owned the property as joint tenants. As joint tenants. I will go back, so don't get confused. As joint tenants versus tenants in common versus tenants by the entire, so husband and wife. As joint tenants. The survivor of the group, right? The survivor of the group receives the property. So there's a survivorship. And again, I'll go back and then I'll come forward again. The survivor group receives the property. So as I was saying right now, it was sister and sister in the deed. The four people were in the mortgage, but on the deed, there was two people, sister and sister. So because they had it as joint tenants, as JTs, when one sister died, who gets the shares? Who's the immediate heir of that ownership? The surviving sister, not the husband. All right? Nobody saw this. Again, listen, throughout your profession, you're always going to have the thing of, it's not my fault because this is an attorney thing, right? You're always going to have that. But try to pay attention to these things. Most of the times, you don't have to deal with it. But try to pay attention to these things. It could change everything. It could change you wasting 3 months of your work to then realize, oh, they can't sell. Oh, they can't buy. You understand? So it doesn't hurt to look at stuff, right? It does not hurt. Like recently, I had on Saturday, I had somebody here that brought some paperwork. I said, okay, you want to sell your house? Great. Oh, you have a loan modification. So let's see what you have on loan modification. Why? Because you might not be able to sell the house. You might owe more than what the property is worth, right? The other thing is, oh, loan modification was while you're married? Bring me the divorce documents. Now, I'm not the attorney. I'm not the one that has to go through these things. But I'm helping so I can give advice and say who do you need to see or not. Does that make sense? Right? Can we just bring this to the mortgage rep, or can we go straight to an attorney and figure out what's going on? Is there any avenue here that I think as a professional and experienced in my life, is there any avenue that we can take? Right? So I sit down with this person, and after reviewing the paperwork, unfortunately, there's nothing specific in the divorce decree that says she can take over or not. There's nothing in the loan modification that says, oh, we'll forgive the balance after 5 years, which was very common at the time, right? So she's stuck with the ex-husband being on the deed, and she's stuck with the loan modification not allowing her to sell the property unless she does a short sale or takes a huge loss. You understand? So it's not my job. But again, we are consultants. If I saw something there that could be helpful, I would recommend her right away to go look for an attorney. Just like in this case. If we knew, if we had paid attention to it, right, which until that particular case, it was not our job, and it's not our job, right? Until this particular case I just addressed, right, we didn't care. At this point, we're like looking at every single deed. We request the deeds to make sure that you are who you say you are in this transaction, right? I'm not telling you you're not, but let's see how the paperwork was prepared, okay? All right, Ed, Ruth over YouTube is asking, because I used you in the example. So she's asking, if you did not have heirs, what would happen to the shares? Okay, when you died. So she still killed you like I did, okay? She kept you dead, and now she's asking, well, who gets it if not the heirs? So we're going to talk about this later on, but in the state of New Jersey, for instance, so there's something which is cheat, and this cheat is if you don't have a will, then the state determines who receives what, okay? If you don't have heirs, nobody claims, then the state of New Jersey, for instance, would sell the property in the public auction and then wait until somebody claims. And again, if nobody claims, now the state of New Jersey keeps the money because there's nobody, right? So, Ruth, that's what happens. If you have a will, this is the importance of a will. You either giving up money to the state of New Jersey or whatever state you're in, you're either giving up money to them, or you're deciding, I have no heirs, so let me give the money to charity, for instance, right? By the way, if anybody's watching this on YouTube, Ruth, including you, and you guys here on Zoom, if you don't have heirs, right, just put me there. I'll be your heir. You can appoint anybody. You can appoint anybody you want, and I'll gladly be your heir. Okay, just saying, all right? So everything but the state. No, I'm not being funny, Lula. I'm being serious. Like, why would you give to the state? I can do so many things with that money. But anyway, that's again my recommendation. Always have a will to protect yourself and the situation. Okay. Let's go back to the book. All right. So we were talking about ticks, and then I jumped to JT just to prove a point. So. Key features of ticks. Again, tenants in common. There's two or more owners. These are co-tenants of one single property. We have identical rights. If you remember, indivisible interest. Interest, not shares, but interest. Now, I have equal rights to possess and use the property subject to the rights of the other co-tenants. and no co-tenant can claim to own any physical portion of the property exclusively. See, what we've done, Joel and I, we purchased the property, Joel. We bought the property. But I only put $1, you put $99. So how do we define our shares? Ed, I think you have an extra person there. I'll charge double for that. Can you please just... Kelly, just because I was talking about you. That's it. I know. All right, Joel. So, Joel, I was saying, I put $1, you put $99. How are our shares divided? Do you have 99% of the shares? Do I have 1% of the shares? Depends. It's not how much money you put in, it's how we determine in the title, in the deed in this case, right? Because we could be 50-50. You know why, Joel? Because you put 99% of the money, but I'm the one managing the property. So my time is worth your 99% as well. Does this make sense? So we determine what we own or not. We cannot claim that I have this part and you have this part, and that's how you separate the assets. No, everything is shared, but if we want to separate something, it's the shares themselves. Okay? So interests are individually owned, again, our respective shares, right? And we elect how much we own. Like I was just saying right now, I could own 1%, you could own 99% based on the money we put in, but we could own 50-50. In fact, depending on the state, like state of New Jersey, it is assumed immediately that the shares are equal. So if I don't say that I own 50%, and if you don't say that you own 50%, automatically it's 50-50. Okay? If you say, well, no, Bruno, I own 99%, you own 1%, but we never put it on paper, then again, automatically it is assumed that we are 50-50. Did you guys get that? So it's not based on the money you put in, it's based on how we elect to own the property. Ruth is laughing. For some reason, I'm assuming that YouTube is behind. All right, I'm going to do a quick test just so I know what it is. Ruth, it is now 6:23 and 10 seconds. Let's see when you get this message. Just type something when you get this. I want you to tell me what time it is when you get this. All right, so this is for whoever's watching on YouTube. Sometimes there's a lag there. I just want to make sure. All right, there's no survivorship. So like I said, you own your individual shares. So this means that once you die, Joel, I'll never die in my examples, just letting you know. Once you die, who gets the shares? Your heirs. If there's no heirs, then you give it up to the state of New Jersey. Congratulations, right? And there is no unity of time. What does that mean? You can, let's say I bought the property today and I need money tomorrow to rehab. I'm going to call you up and say, hey, Joel, I need money to rehab, right? To renovate. And Joel, you're going to tell me, Bruno, I have the money, but I need to be on the deeds. So I need to be on title. I'm like, okay. So I add you to the deeds. So what we're saying is the unity of time means it's not necessary that I purchase the property at the same time that you become part of the deed. Okay? We don't have to buy the property at the same time together. You can come later on. So that's something about ticks. You can jump in at any time or leave at any time. Okay? And I just addressed that here. And we're going to go to JT, joint tenancy. You want me to repeat? That's an extra $5. Saying. What part do you want me to repeat? Unity of time. Ed, I just got a message from Kelly talking about Joel. I don't know. Seriously, I don't know. This is a problem. He gets on camera, sends me messages. Seriously. All right, so. All right, Joel, I'll get to that in a second. Let me talk about unity of time, as Aline was asking. So here's the thing about unity of time. All right, there's 2-minute lag with YouTube. Okay, so unity of time. So what I was saying is, Joel and I, right? So Aline, I'm going to keep on using Joel for this example. Joel and I, we're going to buy a property together, and I bought the property today, but I need money to rehab, right? So I contact Joel tomorrow and I say, Joel, listen, I need money. Do you know anybody that has money? And Joel goes like, I do, right? So I need money for rehab. And he says, I'll give you the money for rehab as long as I'm a partner. So I bought it. So B, I bought it on October 1st, right? Joel came to me on October 27th and says, I have to join. So no problem. So we're going to add Joel, and I'm going to give him some shares. Does that make sense? Did he come in at the same time? Did we purchase the property together? We didn't. So there's no unity of time. We did not purchase the property together. Okay? So for us to have unity of time, he should have purchased the property at the same time as me. That's what it is. But the next one, the JT, requires unity of time. So we have to join in at the same time. Okay? Now, Joel is asking, that means it's like if you sell your other part of the property. Yes, I'm selling a piece of the property. I own 100%, and I sold to you, sorry, and I sold to you 30, 40, 50% of the property, yes. So when I added you to it, I sold for the money that you gave me. You gave me $40,000 for rehabs. So yes, I sold part of the ownership to you. Yep, so we become both owners. Very good. All right, so, sorry, hold on. Everything will be on paper. Everything will be a contract, yes. When I'm purchasing the property, it's just me, right? Or if we agreed already before, it's just me. Later on, if I'm adding you to the deed, we're going to put a contract together that says I'm adding you in exchange for X amount of dollars. So if you gave me $40,000, I'm going to prepare a contract that says for $40,000 consideration, I'm adding you to the deed. You're part owner. So yes, it goes from me owning to both of us owning everything on paper. Unless you want to give me money, then we're good. If you want to give me money, we don't have to put it on paper. I'm good. I'll go with it. Right? Simple. Make sure you always put stuff in writing. Never give money or receive money without being in writing. Okay? So back to this. Joint tenancy or JT. This is the most confusing one of all. Because tenancy and severalty, one owner. Tenants in common, 2 or more owners not married. The last one is going to be tenants by the entirety. Well, it's 2 people married. Husband and wife, spouse and spouse, whatever. JT is the most complicated one to understand. See, in a joint tenancy or JT, 2 or more persons collectively own a property as if they were one single person. Rights and interests are indivisible, right? We cannot divide the interests, and equal. Each has a shared interest in the whole property that cannot be divided. Again, cannot be divided. Joint tenants may only convey their interests to outside parties as tenants in common interest. I'll explain that better in a second. But you cannot convey or transfer a JT interest. So if you guys remember, convey means transfer. Can I transfer the joint tenancy interest? The answer is no. So what is a joint tenancy, or what are the characteristics? There's 4. We have time, title, interest, and possession, right? So those are the main characteristics. One of the things we have also is survivorship. I'll explain that better in a second. But we have unity of ownership. So we own together through the same deeds. Equal ownership, so same shares, undivided shares. And we have the right to transfer, the same right to transfer interest, right? So this is very important. And of course, as I said before, there's unity of time that's missing here, right? We're going to address it further down. But it's time, title, interest, and possession. So, unity of ownership, same deed. That's what it is. We don't hold a separate title, same deed, same interest. Equal ownership cannot be changed, equal, and this is without exception. So it does not matter how much money I put in, right? $1 or $99. We are 50-50, period. In this type of ownership, it is shared equally, period. No ifs or buts about it. All right? As far as transfer of interest, if I ever transfer interest, it can only be to an outside party, and that outside party will be considered a tick with the JT. Again, I'll go over this in a second. And then the right of survivorship means if, Joel, if you die by any chance, I will automatically receive your shares. Your heirs do not. Okay? So it does not pass along to your heirs. And this happens without probate proceedings, meaning we don't have to go to court. I automatically receive your property. So right here, erase this. Okay. If you guys notice, it's the same 3 people, A, B, and C, right? Same 3 people. But I took the division of shares because we cannot have the divided shares. Maybe A put $1, B put $0, and C put $10. There's no division of shares. I don't care how much money you put in. We are 1/3 owners in this scenario. 1/3. You guys understand? It's divided by 3 people equally. This is called JT, joint tenancy. Okay? That's a JT. Okay? Now, this is what happens in the JT. Like I said, there's something called right of survivorship. And the right of survivorship is simple. If C dies, well, C is just one less person in the group. That's it. One less person in the group. So now it's between me and A. And of course, we know who's going to survive out of this, right? Because we'll figure out a way. You know how it is. That's it. A is gone. So here's the thing. As an example, I came in with $0, and at the end of the day, I'm the one that now owns the property. You understand? So in the JT, which is elective, we choose to be a JT, right? In the JT, there's something called right of survivorship. So there's a survivor in the group. As people die, the survivor automatically acquires it. So if you remember the example that I gave you between the sister and the sister, right? So they, what they did is they purchased the property together, sister and sister, as joint tenants. When one died, the other one acquired the interests automatically. Okay? So that now we no longer have a JT because I'm the survivor. We have several T. There's only one, right? There's only one now, correct? Now, do you guys remember when we talk about tenancy and severalty? You guys remember I said that if the person dies in severalty, right? If this person dies, the shares go to whom? Who do the shares go to if it's a tenancy and severalty? Let me know in the chat real quick. Heirs, very good. So, if I die, never going to happen, but if I do die, the shares go to heirs. Oh, wait a minute, Bruno, you just told me that in the JT, the shares don't go to heirs. Yeah, but I'm the survivor, and because I'm the survivor, it's a severalty. Because it's severalty, automatically, I'm the one entitled to pass along to my heirs. You see, all of us can put something in the will. All of us can put something in the will, but only the last one can actually transfer to the heirs. Only the last one, nobody else. Okay? Let me clear this real quick. Because now I want to bring them back. I'm good like that. I bring people back from the dead, as you can tell. So A and C are back with us. But C is feeling like, you know, this is really not working out. I put $10. You guys didn't put anything. And I don't know. I need my money back. Can anybody buy it from me? And we're going to say, no, we're not buying from you. Remember this from yesterday? I said, no, I'm not going to buy from you. Right? What can C do? See, in the JT, if there has to be 4 unities that we talked about. Unity of time, title, interest, and possession. So in a JT, if C dies, the shares go to A and B. If C sells the property, he sold his third or her third to D as in David, right? So to David. David now owns the shares. But did you guys notice that something switched here? Can anybody tell me what's different now from the JT? What changed? Let me know. What changed? What changed from the JT? See, JT, we all had equal shares. Lula, I know. I'll go back to all of it again. I know. I told you this was the most confusing one. There was a transfer of interest, of course. Francesca says, oh, we don't have equal shares anymore. Nope, it's still equal shares. There's just one thing that changed here. Janice wrote, A and B are together. Okay. C transferred to D, correct. But did you notice? Yes, these are together. Did you notice that this guy is separated? Right? He's no longer, let me go back. JT, shares are equal. But then C, just like Joel said, transfer the interest, right? To D. Because there has to be 4 unities, D came along later on. So D became a tick. A and B were still a JT. But this person is separate from the original group. You guys remember that? We have to be from the original group. So this person came later. Because this person came later, they are now tenants in common with our JT. And now if A dies, it's just one less person in the group. And the JT finally ends. Because the original parties of the JT are gone. What we have now is a full-blown tick, where I own 2/3 and D owns 1/3. All right? Don't worry, I'm going to repeat it all over again. Okay. So, Let me go back. Then we're going to go here. All right. The only difference, the way I do it and the way they do it, is they keep on this separation. I don't like the separation because it's not separated, it's equal. Interests, 33%, 33%, 33%, so 1/3, right? If C sells the interest, this is the initial interest. If C sells the interest to D, right, then D is not part of the original group. D is a tick, while A and B are still a JT because they're from the original group. D can sell. I'm sorry, C can always sell to whoever. A can always sell to whoever. B can always sell to whoever. Yep. So I did say they're equal and can't be divided. They're equal. They're still 33%, as you see, 33 and 1/3, 33 and 1/3, and so on. They're still 33%. So in the book, that's why I don't like to use the book example, is because of this this thing right here that they put, the division. Shouldn't be there. But anyway, so we have equal undivided shares. When C sold to D, it separated the group. The original group was A, B, C. Okay? Once C sold, he separated A, B, and C to now being A and B, right, as one group, and then D by itself. Okay? So let's picture it this way. Lula, you and I buy a property, and Joel always comes after. I'm sorry, Joel. You and I buy a property, and then we bring Joel later on. Okay? We are the original owners, correct? But we brought, and we had equal shares, 50-50, but we brought Joel. Is he part of the original agreement? No, he came after, right? If we purchased as a JT, then no matter what, you and I had equal shares, no matter what, right? So by adding somebody later, that somebody later is still not part of the original group. So therefore, there is a separation. They are ticks, period. They can never be JT. And why can't they be JT? Because again, they don't have these benefits. They will not have these benefits of equal ownership. They will not have the benefits of the unity of ownership or the right of survivorship. That's what it is. This is what makes a JT, the right of survivorship mainly, right? So if Joel dies, the shares go to his heirs, right? That's what it is, right? But if it's between you and I, and I'm sorry, you die, I absorb your shares immediately. That's what it is. So we are the original group and somebody came later. That's what it is. All right? Guys, don't forget, keep your cameras on. Very important. Okay? So, in this case, the first part that I addressed, and here they're addressing it after. In this case, we're talking about the death of one of the owners. So poor C always dies for some reason. So we have A, B, and C. When C dies, what do we have? Well, 50-50. It does not go to heirs. It automatically is absorbed by the survivors of the group equally, automatically. Okay? So to create a joint tenancy, these are the 4 unities we must have. Again, so Denise, what we're trying to say is we must acquire the property at the same time. So if it's me, Lula, and Denise, the 3 of us must acquire at the same time in order to be considered a JT, right? Our names must be in the same title, so it must be in the same deed, same time, same deed, right? Our interests, our benefits, right, must be equal as well, undivided interests. So we own everything. If it's 3 of us, it's 1/3. If it's 4 of us, it's 1/4, and so on. Automatically. Doesn't matter how much money you put in. And then the last one is unity of possession. So I have the same right of possession. You cannot tell me, Bruno, you cannot come to the property. Cannot do that. Or Bruno, this is your corner of the property. You cannot do that. We have equal rights to the property. You guys good so far? All right. I know this one gets confusing, and guys, if you need to just ask questions, where you're confused, just tell me, Bruno, I'm confused with this. Bruno, I'm confused with that. And I will explain as many times as I have to. Okay? So, going back to this example, all right, like I said, it does not matter how much money you put. We can choose to be a JT, undivided shares, right? So assuming that everything is equal between us. And when one person dies, there's the right of survivorship. The other parties absorb the shares automatically. If this person sells, then they're selling to an outsider. That outsider of the group will always be a tick. They don't have the right of survivorship. What does that mean? It means that when A dies, I get the shares. But when I die, it does not go to D. It goes to my heirs. Okay? So from the JT, is the right of survivorship transferable to anybody that comes after? No. It's only, the right of survivorship only exists with the original group. Period. Now, one of the questions you guys might have is, who would do this? Why would I buy a property that cannot go to my heirs? Why would I do that? So, most of the times, this is a business decision versus emotional decision. All right? So, Lula and Denise, let's assume this. Let's assume I'm married, you're married, and Denise is married as well. So there's 2 of you here in this particular Zoom class with me, right? So I know that Lula and Denise, guys, you are entrepreneurs, or at least have an entrepreneurial spirit. You want to be part of something that's a business versus being an employee or just living life, right? You want to do something better with your life. You want to improve. Maybe that's what it is. At least that's what I feel. Does that make sense? Anybody that's here now in this Zoom, that's what I feel. You want to do something better, right? So I'm going to say, hey, Lula, Denise, how about we buy a property, right? We're going to buy a property, but we're buying it as a JT. And now that you guys know what a JT is, would you agree to it? Would you agree to buy something that most likely I will get at the end versus your heirs? All right, Lula says yes. Denise, no answer? Here's the thing. A lot of people go like, no, Bruno, no. I like to invest. I want to invest, but what do you mean if I die, my heirs don't get anything, right? Most people get emotional. And I'm going to bring you to reason. Well, Lula, here's the thing. I know you, I don't know your husband, right? I know Denise because I see her here, but I don't know the husband, right? Or a significant other. I don't know who you guys have on the other side. I don't know if they're entrepreneurs. I don't know if they know about business. I do not know that. What I know is you, and that we have the same mindset. We're here. We want to invest. We want to grow. So this decision to do this versus a JT is a business decision. Because when you die, if you die first, let's say, let me assume that this is you, right? When you die, very important. I don't want your husband to come here and tell me, Bruno, I want all the money. Sell it now. You understand? I don't want somebody to step up and take away what we worked hard to obtain, right? And this happens all the time, all right? This happens all the time. I had this case, a student of mine she's from India, and she said that her sister her sister did purchase a property a few years back, naming her as, so both of them are as joint tenants. And her sister says, when I die, I want you to keep the property. Simple. But the sister had a son. And guess what the son wanted to do? As soon as the mother died, the son starts talking about selling the property. And my student said to her nephew, she goes like, nope, we're not doing this. Your mom and I worked hard to buy this property, which is bringing you profit every single month. So it's going to help you towards college and towards things you need. So no, we're not selling. Guess what the nephew did? Puts the aunt in court. Takes her to court, trying to win the fact that he's the rightful heir, therefore he can sell the mom's shares. And of course, got to court, and court said, nope, that's not how a joint tenancy works. So luckily, the aunt is managing the money for the nephew. Unfortunately, the sister or the mother is no longer around, and unfortunately, she's looked at by the nephew as somebody that's taking advantage of the situation. Could it be? Possibly. I don't put my hands on the fire for nobody, right? Could it be? Possibly. But this is the problem with a tick. When you die, it goes to your heirs, and then your heirs can show up and, as you said before, Lula, take you to court to sell the property, right? I don't want your husband to come and do that to me, or a significant other to come and do that to me. I don't want your kids to come and do that to me. I know business, you know business, and Denise knows business. We understand each other. This is a business decision. Can I put something here, a clause that says, when you die, I'll still give some type of profit, right? Like a disability type of thing. I'll give the profits at 40% of what it was originally, let's say. Can I put a clause with you guys? Hey, we're buying this property as joint tenants, and when one of us dies, will you keep on providing to the family? Can I? Can I ensure? We make an agreement where we insure each other's life. Can we make an agreement? I'll insure your life, you insure my life, right? And if one of us dies, that money that we have as a group will be distributed to my heirs, and that's it. Then you keep the property, and my heirs keep the money. Is it possible? Yeah, we can create these things. These are separate things. But this right here is title. This is title. This is how we own the property. Okay? Can we have separate arrangements to protect our heirs? Sure. But right here, it's title. Who owns what? It's a business decision. Who owns what? All right? Thumbs up? Thumbs up? Yes, no? Okay. Raising your hand like this. I don't know if that's a question or said no. What's no? Denise says, I'm sure side deals get messy in the JT. Side deals. Well, this was all arranged. Remember, again, wait, again. This is just how we own it. Again, title, that's all it is. The side deals that I was talking about, or doing this stuff, it's up front. We're going to buy this, but we're going to implement already future provisions in case one of us dies first. So everything is agreed upon up front. It's not something like later on we go like, even the attorneys will sit down and you'll be like, okay, look, listen. If you die, the other ones get it, right? So up front, they're going to be like, what do you want to do? Like if you die, or if you die, what do you guys want to do? What happens to your heirs? So attorneys always try to take us away from a JT if we don't fully understand how it works. Always. Attorneys would then suggest things like this. Let's make an arrangement that at the end, you have to pay. So it's like preparing a group will. Think about it. It's like preparing a group will, right? Last will and testament. The group will, where we determine at the end who gets what. You guys understand? So these are not side deals that, hey, in the future we're going to figure out what to do. No. We will determine upfront what to do. Okay, so everybody's protected. And listen, doesn't matter what it is, when it comes to inheritance, it can always get messy. No matter if it's a severalty, if it's a tick, if it's a JT, it can always get messy. When money's involved, people turn into animals, right? They're the sweetest thing as you grow up and then turn into animals. Money turns people. It's unbelievable. All right. The next thing we have is tenancy by the entirety. Now, tenancy by the entirety is husband and wife, and most states now call it spouse and spouse. Okay? So most states have changed already their laws to allow married people. So this is pretty much married people to own property together. So we're going to go here. All right. And we're going to change this. And these are two entities married. Okay? Two entities married. So this is between husband and wife, or again, spouse and spouse. But just for this purpose, for this example purpose, I'm going to keep it as H and W because it's easier to address the question, okay? So, if you guys look at this one, if I didn't say anything else, what does this remind you of? Right? Looking at it, considering the previous examples, what does this remind you of? What type of ownership does it look like just by looking at it? Angeline just said joint. Correct. So this is very similar to a JT. Okay? This one is called entirety. So it's very similar to the JT in what way? Right? I see Jeff, I see you. Right? Elena, I see you. So there you go. So since I have you both here, right? And Ed, pay attention to, since you got Kelly around there. Here's what happens. When we kill the wife, all right, what happens is in the tenancy by the entirety, the husband acquires everything automatically. Joel's laughing. Okay. Next plan. This is what we can do? All right. No, we can't do this stuff. This is illegal. Okay. You go to jail. But why? Why? I'm a man. Why would I say, hey, we're going to kill the husband? Why would I do that? I'm sorry. That would be really bad. Like, hey, kill yourself, right? That's like suicide here live. Anyway, so the husband acquires automatically, just like a JT, in a tenancy by the entirety, there's something called right of survivorship. If one dies, the other one is the survivor of the group and automatically owns the property. Again, this is only for properties. This is only for properties that are acquired together. Right? We used to have dower and courtesy in a lot of states, don't have it anymore. Dower and courtesy, this will happen automatically to all properties. Doesn't matter who owns it. For husband and wife owning it, is just one less person in the group. Okay? For the house that they own together. All right? Now, let me ask you something. See, I brought the wife back. Happy? All right. So, what if there's a divorce? What if there's a divorce? And I'm going to make Lula happy right now for a second. All right, we're gonna kill the husband. All right, go ahead. Fine, guys. I'm sorry, I had to. Right? You guys are not looking at the way Lula's looking at me right now, so I have to. Right? So husband dies. What happens to the shares? Who gets the shares? Let me know in the chat. Who gets the shares? YouTube. Who gets the shares? Lily, you changed your mind? Okay. Getting heirs, I'm getting wife. I'm getting more wives than heirs. Did you guys realize that there was a divorce? Did you guys realize this is the ex-wife? So if it's the ex-wife, see, you want everything, right, Lula? You want the husband to die and you want the shares. I see how it is. No. The heirs get it. They're not married anymore, so they don't have that beneficial interest that they had while they were married. The right of survivorship is no longer there. You asked for it, so you get nothing. The heirs do. All right? So who would be the heirs? The heirs could be kids if they're alive, could be parents if they're alive, it could be anybody that I name in the will. So could I name some type of not-for-profit to now own 50-50 with you? Sure. You guys understand? So after a divorce happens, there's a separation. What does this remind you of with a separation? From the previous ownerships. What does this remind you? It's no longer by the entirety. What is it called when there's a cut? When there's a separation of shares, what is it called? Nope. Nope. When there's a separation, there you go. When there's separation, this now became a tick. Blood sucking and can't get rid of each other. I mean, tenants in common. That's what it is. Perfect. All right. Guys, remember, if it would be, so those of you that answer JT, for it to be a JT, there has to be no separation. Equal shares and the right of survivorship. I said there's a divorce. So the first thing that we cut in the divorce is the right of survivorship. So it's definitely not a JT. It became a tick. Before I move forward, questions? And this is the most complicated stuff you'll get in this chapter. Everything else is easy. Denise says, thank God. Joel has a question. Lula, what, you want stuff more complicated or you're happy? Okay. Joel, you're typing a question? Want to know? Yep, okay. You know, I really wish Zoom was like Messenger. Like when somebody's typing, or WhatsApp, when somebody's typing, I know they're typing. So it's kind of like, I can wait. Sometimes I stay here for like 30 seconds staring, just waiting and hoping for a question, and then nothing comes through. You know? Maybe that's a suggestion I'm going to give to Zoom. All right, here we go. Question. If I have a house and I divorce, but I only have one house on her name, but I have extra that she gets a percentage. Okay. I see how it is, Joel. You're already trying to figure out what to do. So, yeah, okay. So you and Lula, I see how you guys are. There you go. All right, so... Joel, real quick, are you married? You are? You're married? Yes? Okay, is she listening? No? Okay, good. So here's what you do. It's a joke. All right. So if you have a house together and you get divorced, you only have one house in her name, and then you have other houses that are in your name but not hers. Does she get a percentage? First thing I'm going to tell you is I'm not a lawyer, so you have to ask that to an attorney. That's the first thing. The second thing I can tell you is, and again, consult with a lawyer to confirm, but, right, if part of your marital income was used to purchase those houses, then yes, she's gonna, because that's a question that the dumbest attorney will ask in court. Your Honor, please ask Mr. Pacheco, how did he acquire these properties? Where did the money come from? Right? If you say, well, it's from my salary, well, isn't the salary for the income for the house for both of you? So that means that you were putting money aside from your marriage. You understand? So yes, she could be entitled to a percentage of the property. Here's the other question. Joel, does your wife clean those properties? Does your wife help you maintain the property somehow? Because if she does, then there's something called equitable interest. Equitable interest, that means she put sweat equity. She put work into the property. Celine is like, yep, that's right. I did that. All right? So that's it. You want to keep things separate, make sure you keep them separate from the get-go. Don't from the beginning. Don't mix things while married, because then it could be a big mess. And obviously, make sure you guys talked about it before the marriage. Like, what are we going to do? I have money from before. Whatever I buy with that money from before our marriage is mine. Whatever you buy with money you had before our marriage is yours. If that's what you want to do. You want to join forces? Go ahead. Lula's like, don't give him that advice. No, it's a prenup. What I'm saying is, it's a prenup. Whatever you guys agree. Look, it's not just for men. I've had that question from women. I had a lot of those questions from women. Like, what can I do? I want to buy another house and I don't want the husband to be part of it. Like, come on. Anyway. That's why everybody has to be paid every week like an employee, sure. Anyway, again, consult. If you guys ever have questions like this, you want to protect your assets, like things are getting out of hand, talk to attorneys. Like, one thing I can tell you, and look, I will give this advice because my mom told me this before, unfortunately, she passed away. She called me out of the blue and goes, Bruno, nobody deserves your happiness. Out of the blue. Just to tell me nobody deserves my happiness. Meaning, you don't have to be stuck in something that you don't like. Right? If you're not happy, move on. Right? And was it easy? No. But we went through, and we're good friends now, and that's how it was. But it took somebody to tell me, like my mom, like dearest person in my life, my best friend and all that, to tell me out of the blue, nobody deserves your happiness. Like, you don't have to be stuck to anybody. And definitely not at the expense of your kids. Like, a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to wait until the kids are grown. Sometimes it's worse because they see married people arguing with each other. All right? So that is an advice, and it goes against everything that I learned when I was a kid. My grandparents saying, no, we'll die together. I'm like, good for you. I'm not doing that, unfortunately. And I love my grandparents, you know, but when one died, a few years later, they have somebody else, and they're happy. So why do we have to wait until somebody dies in order to move on and be happy? Right? Everybody deserves to be happy. All right? So, again, I'm not saying that that's your situation, Joel, obviously. Right? Careful, that La Chancla is coming. Right? Yeah, duck. All right. Anyway, so I'm not saying that that's the situation. But if you ever know anybody that's in a situation, the first step, yeah, tradition. The the first step is always, if we went by tradition, we were still grabbing people by the hair and out of the cave and all that stuff. No. Anyway. I know some people would like to, but anyway. My advice is always to consult with a lawyer to see where you stand right now and how it could affect, so you can prepare yourself for that eventuality. Okay? That's all I can say. All right, moving forward. Yep, Dr. Phil. There you go. The real Dr. Phil. Moving on. Here I am getting sued in about 2-3 months by some wife or husband that says, my husband listened to you in a class and said they should get divorced. Like, that's not what I said. If you guys watch the whole live, not what I said. See? And you talk about Dr. Phil. Look right here. Look right here. It's with everything in life. Work, relationship, right? Friendship and relationship. That's it. With everything. You don't have to be tied to anything. Anyway. Pedro, if you're listening, this partnership is over. Pedro's my partner, by the way. If you guys see him here on the somewhere, you guys can see his face is there. That's it. Partnership is over. Because Shanice said, work as well. All right. Next. Estates in trust. We're going to talk about this very briefly. There's living trust and there's land trust. Here in the state of New Jersey, we don't have much of this. Other states might. But an estate in trust or fee owner, there's a grantor or trustor that transfers legal title to a fiduciary, the trustee, who holds and manages the estate for the benefit of another party, the beneficiary. Now, the trust may be created by deed, by will, or trust agreement, and the trustee has fiduciary duties or obligations to the trustor, whoever created the trust. And the beneficiary maintains the condition and value of the property. The specific responsibilities and authorities are set up in the trust agreement. So we don't have this, like I said, that much in the state of New Jersey, but some states are very popular with using trusts for real estate ownership. Like Wyoming, for instance. It's a great state to set up trusts for ownership of property. So there's a trustor, me, right? And I give the title to the trustee. And that trustee, Lula, yes, it could be a lawyer. It could be your best friend. It could be a family member. It could be a property management company, whoever you decide to be the trustee, right? And then they owe us specific duties. That means they must handle the property to the best of their abilities, right? And then ownership and benefits and duties, again, to the beneficiary. So I can be the trustor creating it and become a beneficiary, or somebody else become a beneficiary of the trust. The other thing we have is a living trust. A living trust is like a will, right? A will, but during your lifetime. So in a will during a lifetime, it's pretty much just in case something that might happen to you that make you mentally or physically unable to perform certain duties, and somebody in the living trust can you gave them full powers to handle things on your behalf. Okay, that's what it is. Now, obviously, when the trustor dies, the living trust ends, and a last testament and will takes over. I'm sorry, Lula. Why would somebody do this? What? The living trust or this one? Living trust. Okay. So a living trust is, again, I'm appointing you that in case something happens to me, you know, like I know something might happen, like I have cancer, or some people just do it because, but let's say I have cancer, or let's say I have a terminally ill disease where I'm going to most likely will die. That's why it's called terminally ill, right? So if I have these things, and if my disease takes me to a point where I'm in a coma, I'm not dead. I'm still alive. I'm just in a coma, right? So I'm giving you the power to handle everything on my behalf. That's it. You're not going to come and say, hey, Bruno, blink twice. Or Bruno, lift a finger, just tell me if it's okay. No, I'm in a coma, so I might not react at all. Oh, the estate and trust? We're going to find these nowadays. Both of these are some type of protection to one of the parties, right? So the estate and trust, we can do this to separate. So let's say somebody wants to sue on the property, they will not know who to sue because the owner of record, right, is the trustee. That's what they're going to see, the trust and the trustee. That's all they're going to see, right? So it's almost like an LLC without being incorporated, right? So there's a trust, there's a beneficiary, and there's a separation to the public. Right? So the public never sees who the beneficiary is and never sees who the trustor is, who created the trust. On title, they'll see 123 Main Street Trust. And the trustee, which is the attorney, for instance, for 123 Main Street Trust. Okay? So it's very similar to saying 123 Main Street LLC. It's just that LLCs are incorporated with the state and searchable at state level. So I can know exactly who owns an LLC, right? It's like somebody managing your property. It could be. So a trustee is handling documents mainly for your property. But yes, you could be a property management company as well that manages your property. Absolutely. Okay? Now we're going to go into ownership by business entities. Ownership by business entities. And we have corporations, partnerships, and LLCs that I was just talking about, right? A corporation is a legal entity owned by stockholders. Legal entity owned by stockholders. That means, guys, there's 15 people here, and we all want to purchase a property. 16 people. We all want to purchase a property, right? But I don't have money by myself. You don't have money by yourself. So what are we going to do? We're going to join forces, and we're going to buy a property, but we're going to put it under, to protect each other, we're going to put it under a corporation, right? So who owns the property? This entity owns the property in severalty. You guys remember that? Severalty? The entity, the corporation, is the one owner of the property. What we own, again, is stocks. We are stockholders. So we appoint somebody, an officer, a manager, a board of directors to manage the business, right? And what we own, again, is shares. In a partnership, the concept is very similar. The problem with a partnership is that we agree together to buy something, but we do not incorporate. We're just partners. The problem with a partnership is there's no separation, there's no shield, right? So in a corporation, there's a shield. Here, there's no shield. Okay? So because there's no shield, well, that's exactly what I'm going to talk about right now. In this one, if we're all partners, especially general partners, if we are all partners and we make money, everybody's happy, right? Because we made money. But if we get sued for $1 million, and only one of us has the amount of money to pay for that $1 million, guess what? We share liability, right? So that means that, let's say only I can pay that $1 million. I will be responsible for paying the $1 million in the lawsuit and then try to collect from all of you whenever possible. So there's no shield. There's no protection, right? In a corporation, there's a shield. And that shield is between the corporation and you. So if somebody sues, they're going to sue the corporation. If the corporation has assets, great. Then the corporation pays. If the corporation does not have assets, can they bypass and come and sue you directly? No, they cannot. They cannot bypass the corporation unless you committed fraud. If you committed fraud, then there's no shield. There's no protection whatsoever. But if you've done everything right and something goes wrong and you get sued for any reason, that shield is there to protect you, your name, and your individual assets from any potential lawsuit. That's what it is. In a partnership, nope. We're all together. We all share the liability jointly and several. Okay? We are on page 47. I got you. I just sent you right now the book. From first edition to second edition, there's small differences in the pages. But I just sent it to you right now in Zoom. Okay? So you can download this chapter. So, can I give an example of a partnership business? It's the way, all these are the way, like LLCs, corporations, it's the way we set it up. Like when we go open up, especially with the IRS, it asks you, are you opening up as a corporation, as a partnership, as a LLC? So you choose which form of ownership you want to proceed with. Now, most people have no idea, and they open up businesses without the assistance of a CPA or without the assistance of some type of professional that knows how to handle these things, right? So they go and just open up. We're partners, so what do? Partnership. No. At the very least, do LLC, right? The best one is always corporation, but it's very complicated. So LLCs are the simplest one. They're like a hybrid between partnership and corporation. So they have the flexibility of a partnership. They have the pass-through tax protection of a partnership, and they have that shield that separates like a corporation. So that separates the individual from the business. So the best one for me, because of the types of businesses that I'm involved in, the best one for me is always an LLC. Okay, let's go back to partnership. And again, I answered both of your questions in one. It's just a matter of options and what you choose. Let's go back to partnerships, because there's two types of partnerships. There's the general partnership and there's the limited partnership. Now, limited partnership already says it limits liability. The thing about a limited partnership is that the limited partners are liable only to the extent of their investment. So if the limited partners, let's say all of us get together and I tell you guys, look, I saw this project, it's an amazing project, for $10,000 each, you guys can participate in this great project, right? If I do that, right, and you guys say, yes, I want it, then each one of you is going to put $10,000, right? But I'm going to also tell you, give you a heads up. I'm the general partner. You guys are limited partners. What does that mean? I have a voice or say in the daily activities of the business. I manage the business. I manage the deal. You guys are silent partners, meaning you cannot show up and say, Bruno, this is what you need to do, or this is what we need to do right now. No, you are the money partners. You put money, and that's it. You're silent. You have no voice in what I'm going to do. You understand? So because you're not an active partner, right? You are a passive partner. That's what protects you from liability. The moment you step into the game and you say, Bruno, this is what you need to do, you became an active partner. Becoming an active partner, you are fully liable the same way that I am. Okay? Questions on this? Thumbs up or questions? Okay. Some of you, no thumbs, no questions, no nothing. Okay, got it. Joel, what is the best way to start a portfolio? So this is a real estate class for agents, not for investors, right? I always recommend start with an LLC. So your first property under an LLC, if you keeping that property and buying another property, LLC, and then eventually create what's called an S Corp or umbrella corporation. But there's no need for you to create one right away if you don't have volume, if you don't have a portfolio, right? There's no need for that. It depends on the amount of business that you're doing, okay? And the only advantage of an S Corp for this purpose is to reduce the amount of taxes you have to pay, okay? That's pretty much it. Because the LLC does everything else. It's just how you're being taxed that makes a difference. Okay? Thumbs up? Great. Elena, so when you buy a house, buy as an LLC. If you can. Not all lenders will allow that. So Bank of America, most of the times, will not allow you to buy as an LLC. Especially if you're doing FHA loans or VA loans. They might not allow at all. Usually conventional lenders might be a little bit more flexible on that. But FHAs, no. You want to buy cash or you have a private lender, go ahead and refinance later. Now it's already under an LLC. Now it already has history. So can you do that? Yeah, sure. Okay. All right, next we run into condos, condominiums. Sorry. So condominiums, we have airspace and common elements. We have interests and rights, condominium creation, and organization and management of owner responsibilities. So what is a condominium? So condominium, is a hybrid form of ownership of multi-residential or commercial properties. Condominium, right? So it could be, it's coming. It's coming. We only have 100 more pages to go, and then we'll go into break. It's either that or slow down the whole thing, and there's another chapter to come. But anyway, so condominium, we have a building or several buildings within a particular community, and each one of us owns it, owns each unit, and then shared space, common elements. That's what we own. Okay. What I'm going to show you real quick is this. This is a condominium. What do you own in a condominium? Airspace. That's it. That's your unit. Airspace. Let me zoom in. You do not own the exterior. You only own the interior. So, airspace. Okay? What we do have is access to what's called common elements. So we share benefits in the common elements. We share parking, garage, the pool, right? And other resources, whatever the condominium has. So when they own condos, all right, I'm going to share something with you real quick. And this is the difference between condo and co-op. I'll just send it to you guys. The difference between condos and co-ops. And by the way, I'm also sending the difference between ownerships and tenancies. Okay. So pretty much the difference, as you guys open that up, the difference between condos and co-ops, and I have that divided by condos, co-ops in the table, because you can see the clear differences between them. So in a condo, first of all, a condo, you have exclusive ownership of your unit, exclusive ownership, right? The only thing we share is common areas. In the condo, you can sell your units individually. You can mortgage your units individually, right? You can encumber without interference from other unit owners. So what I'm trying to say is that your condo is an individual financial entity. Even for taxes and insurance, you are individual. And that's the biggest difference between a condo and a co-op, okay? Now, in a condo, right, and the reason why I'm going fast because that table explains it very well. In the condo, we have a homeowners association, right, versus a co-op that has a board of directors. So I'm going to focus more on co-ops. A co-op, that means there's a corporation that owns the building. Okay? So a co-op, there's a corporation that owns the building, not you. Okay? And you're right, Francesca. In a co-op, you buy shares. So in a co-op, what we own is shares. The co-op or corporation owns the building. We own shares. Okay, so all of us bought a building. I get unit number 1, you get unit number 2, you get unit number 3, and so on. There's 15 units right here, 16 units that we share in this building that we all own together. You understand so far? So who owns the building? The corporation. That is a co-op. In a condo, I own the unit, you own a unit, and everybody else here owns its individual units. In a co-op, the building is owned by the corp, and we get a proprietary lease, a lease to occupy the apartments. We get a lease. We do not get ownership of the unit. We have ownership of the stock. But then a lease that allows us to occupy a unit. Okay? We have a lease that allows us to occupy a unit. All right? So with that being said, here's what we own. Stock. All right, I'll get there. Stock, right? So in this example, there's 9 units. I own 1/9 of all units, right? Based on the stock that owns the building. Then, different than what we had in condos, I only lease or occupy unit number 1. Everybody else leases or occupies the other units. We do not own the units. Just like a condo, we have access to what's called common elements. I have access to the pool, to the garage, right? To the parking space and the driveway. Everything is shared. The gym, elevators, everything is shared. But what do we own? Stock. And we have a lease that allows us to occupy. So technically, we are what I call tenant shareholders. So we are tenants. Tenants. Now, Lula's asking, what happens if you leave? Well, if you're trying to leave, you have to sell stock. You're not selling the unit, you're selling stock that allows you to occupy the unit. Right? So, Lula, you want to leave? Find somebody. So, Francesca, she's right next to you here in my. You look to the left, Francesca? That's exactly how, you know, those things that happen right at that time, like the magic happens. Here's Francesca, here's Lula, and I said, you can sell to Francesca, she's right next to you, and Francesca goes like this. Like she was looking at Lula. Anyway, so you find Francesca and you can sell to her. What are you selling? The stock. You're not selling the unit. You're selling the stock that allows her to rent. That's what it is. Okay? Now, the shareholder's interest. The co-op owns the building. What happens if they sell the property? What if the co-op sells the property? The corporation cannot sell the property without you, right? That's what I'm going to go over right now. See, the cooperative association to which you're part of the association, right? The cooperative association is the one that primarily owns the whole building as one entity. And then they share the costs to the shareholders. So you only own stock. You never own a unit or any interest, undivided interest in the common elements. By having a proprietary lease, it allows you to occupy the unit. That's it, right? We share expenses, right, as a whole, and never not as individual units. So why is this important to know that we share as a whole in the co-op? Because the problem, Joel, the problem is not if you sell the property. The problem is if people do not pay their dues. Let's say there's 16 people here, right? Let's say that the majority of us is paying, but then there's a few that are not paying. Like those people that have the cameras off, they're not paying, right? Let's put it that way. They're not paying. And if there's 40% of the crowd that does not pay, do you think we're going to be able to make mortgage payments? Do you think we're going to be able to make tax payments? Do you think we're going to be able to keep utility payments and so on? Something is going to fail, right? So the problem with a co-op is that if enough people stop paying and we stop paying what the bills that we have to pay, then they will foreclose the entire property. You see, in a condo, it's your unit. So if you stop paying, Joel, you lose your unit and don't affect anybody else. In a co-op, if you stop paying, we could lose the entire property. So all of us, even the ones that have been paying on time, could lose the entire property. That's the risk of a co-op. Okay? Questions? Before I go into time scams? Questions? All right, no questions? Great. So timeshares. Now, a timeshare, as it says, you're sharing time in a property. Sharing time, that's what it is, a timeshare. So you could have a timeshare lease that allows you to rent a unit, or a timeshare freehold that allows you to own a unit. Okay? There's a big difference between these two, just like condos and co-ops, right? In one of them, you have the right to occupy. In the other one, you own and you have the right to occupy. Okay? Usually we find these for vacation and resort properties, as you know. And we'll talk better about timeshares when we get to the state portion, right? But with a timeshare, you have something called interval ownership, because you only have the right to occupy or own to occupy the property for a week, for 2 weeks, whatever you purchased, right? That's divided. There's 52 weeks, so there's 52 units of time being sold for that particular building. Does that make sense? So there's 52 units of time being sold. And you can say, hey, this year I'm going to go in on March 15th and I'll come back on March 21st, as an example. Next year I'm going to go in October 1st and I'll come back October 8th, as an example. You're just getting that interval, but you have the right to keep on going there. It's your unit or your allotted rental. Now, in this case, this is one of the issues that you have. As an individual owner of a timeshare, you have to waive the right of partition. What does that mean? You cannot sue the other party to sell, right? So a right to partition would enable an owner to force the sale of the entire property. So when you buy a timeshare, you cannot do that. You don't have that allowance of being able to sue the other party to sell the entire building. Okay. And again, we'll go more in detail in a different chapter. Any questions? Right? There's no questions. It's 7:42. So guys, we're going to go on a quick break. We'll be back 7:50. Okay? 7:50, we'll be back. 8 minutes. Run. See you in a bit.